Judy of Divina Cucina, and welcome to At the Kitchen Table. Today, our guest is Mary Shea from the Querceto in Castellina. Is the full name of the winery, right?
Querceto di Castellina.
Di Castellina, okay. And so, when did you come? When did you come? And where are you from? Give people a little background.
I'm originally from Long Island. I grew up on Long Island. The long story is I went to school in New York. So I went to NYU, studied journalism. It's actually kind of, I wanted to be like the next on-air talent on ESPN, actually. That was what I wanted to do or be when I was like 20. But then I ended up actually kind of working in the marketing world and got into working in advertising after school. And then I lived in Boston for a bit. And then I actually lived in Italy for 2 years in my early 30s. But I didn't live in Tuscany. I lived in Soave up near Verona.
Were you already loving wine, or what's the connection?
So I studied, it's kind of a little bit of a crazy story, but I studied abroad. I minored in German and I studied abroad.
Practical.
Yeah, no, not at all. But I studied abroad in Germany for a summer, and there was an Italian girl in my program. She was from Soave. Her family had a winery in Soave. And that was probably my first kind of exposure to Italian wines. I fell in love with this girl. Her name was Chiara, and she's been a dear friend of mine ever since. And so she kind of gave that's kind of where the love for Italian wines started.
I think Soave is just absolutely gorgeous. The village itself.
Yeah, no, it's really lovely. I mean, it's tiny. I mean, and everyone kind of knows each other. But I think that's kind of the beauty of the place. And the wines are spectacular. I mean, like I love the white wines from Soave.
Exactly,
and there's actually some producers doing some nice things with red. And so I studied abroad. I met Chiara. We stayed in touch over the years, and she ended up actually like coming to the US for work every once in a while for like tasting events. And I would always take time off from work, go to the tasting events with her. And then eventually, I decided I wanted to move to Italy and live there at least for, a year or two. And I lived in Soave. I worked at a local wine bar, which is hilarious because like I studied Italian with a private tutor before moving over there, thank God.
But for how long?
Like how long did I study?
Yeah.
Probably like a year and a half to 2 years.
Oh, wow. Okay, great. Yeah.
And so I studied with the tutor. But basically, I mean, like once I moved to Soave and started working in this wine bar, I was forced, to kind of use the language on a day-to-day basis and kind of get over any kind of fear or insecurity I had of making mistakes. So I lived there on and off for about 2 years. Then I moved back to the US, and back to Boston. But then I really loved being surrounded by vineyards and wineries, and love kind of the food culture. And I just, I started thinking to myself, where could I possibly recreate that in the US? And Napa Valley was kind of the first thing that came to mind. So I ended up moving to Napa for 2 years. And I know you're from the East Coast originally, or West Coast originally.
Yeah, San Francisco Bay Area.
So it's beautiful out there. And I just, I fell in love with Napa. But then I met my husband and fell in love with him.
In Napa? Was he in Napa?
He wasn't living there. He was, it was about 7 or 8 years ago, 7 years ago, I think. And he actually spent a winter based in Los Angeles doing some, just kind of doing some PR and work for the winery. And we met through mutual friends in the wine business over Thanksgiving weekend. I think it'll be 8 years ago this November.
Oh, fun.
7, 8. Gosh, I don't know about you. I can't keep track of years anymore.
Well, time flies. I've been here 37 years now. And oh my God, I never thought I'd be this old. I bought a one-way ticket when I was 30 just to come. And I was thinking about opening a pastry shop like in Napa or Sonoma or something, in the countryside. And I thought, well, it's going to be the last trip because once you open a business, that's it, right? And I thought one more trip to France, which is of course the pastry country, right? And
Right.
then my girlfriend had been living in Paris for a year and Rome for a year, and she came back and said, "You should really move to go to Italy because Italy will love you." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I hate Italian food, those screaming, yelling Italians,
Oh,
getting
really?
deep dish pizza, nothing really, appealed to me about it." But I thought I'll go and I'll take a month of Italian classes and just I picked Florence because they said if you wanted to learn Italian, you should learn it in Florence because they speak pure Italian.
Yeah.
And so coming to Florence was perfect size, like San Francisco versus LA and Rome. I kind of make those connections. Rome
Yeah.
was so huge; it would have been really overwhelming, I think,
Mhm.
to do that. But San Francisco was the Florence kind of size. It's just
Yeah.
small and you walk everywhere, and it was perfect. But yeah, who knew?
What was San Francisco? I mean, sorry, what was Florence like there? I mean, 37 years ago. It must have changed so
Amazing,
much. I love it.
amazing. And already, because Florence was heavily bombed during the Second World War,
Yeah.
and they really didn't, I think, start building it up and surviving until like after the 60s.
Mm-mm.
And then that's also too when you think about it, Chianti.
Yeah.
This is my theory about Chianti.
Okay.
The Germans came here and destroyed everything, saw how beautiful it was, came back and bought everything.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
Because they had money. And so it's what 8 hours to Munich, Monaco, Munich.
Yeah. Okay. It's easy. Yeah.
And so many places were owned by Germans, the first ones that came down, or
Yeah.
people then coming and wanting to stay. They had the money to restore these things. They got them for nothing.
Yeah.
Also the British, right? Because they're countries that could come here easily and come for weekends, come for months, come for quickly. And
Yeah.
so I don't think the Americans really came until like the 80s
Yeah. That
as
sounds about right. Yeah.
as tourism, or
Right.
even like buying properties. That's still kind of like a new thing then that for America, so many now there's tons of Americans with vacation homes and renting B&Bs and have retired here. But yeah, so explain how beautiful your winery is,
Oh goodness.
because it's more than just a winery.
Yeah, well, thank you. And well, no, it's interesting actually, because just kind of like to your point, like my husband's grandfather, he bought Querceto, the property, in 1945. So he actually bought it right after World War II.
And was he from Florence?
He was from Florence. Yeah, he was originally from Florence. My mother-in-law grew up in Florence. My husband and his brother, afterwards. But so he bought it in 45. And to your point, like, I mean, the family house was destroyed by the Germans. So he had to reconstruct the family house. We have, as you know, we have the Agriturismo. So we have, we have 9 apartments and a suite. So we can actually accommodate up to 40 people.
Yeah, great for weddings.
It is, yeah. See, no, we've started. It's funny. My husband's family didn't do weddings a lot before.
Mhm.
But now we do them more often, which is, I mean, as you know, it's a ton of work to do weddings. So, but yeah, so his grandfather bought this estate, and honestly, like the structures here were kind of falling apart. So like the original structure of the Agriturismo dates back to the 1400s. So it's it's a structure that has 600 years old. So my mother-in-law, this is like in the late 80s. She decided to start the first proper business at Querceto because like her father actually had like really no interest in kind of turning this estate
Commercializing
into
it,
a
right?
business
Yeah.
for the family. I don't know. I mean, he bought it honestly like just to be a vacation estate for the family.
And what did he do as a
But
job?
it's you've seen it. It's kind of a little how shall I say, unclear.
Oh, okay.
He did he bought and he constructed some apartments in Florence actually. So at one point he owned a lot of real estate in Florence.
Okay.
He had a lingerie manufacturing business at one point.
Interesting. Yeah.
See, so
Well,
he did
because
that. And
Florence
it's
to me
funny.
has always been fashion and fabrics and clothing. And then when you make your money doing that, then you invest in property usually. That's just
Yeah.
like a natural thing. Italians invest in bricks.
See, No, and he, it's funny, he made the initial investment in buying the property, but then he didn't really do a lot of investments to kind of maintain it.
Yeah.
So when Laura, my mother-in-law, decided to start the Agriturismo, they really, they had to invest like, a lot of money and a lot of time to kind of reconstruct everything. So she started the Agriturismo in the late 80s. She was probably honestly like one of the first to do like a proper Agriturismo in our area.
There weren't a lot. I mean, it was really, really, and the ones that they had, I think, were also, they used to be the style where people would bring their own sheets. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah.
Have you heard those stories where you'd
Thanks.
you'd give an apartment for rent, but it would have like, you bring your own sheets, because why would you sleep on somebody else's sheets? It was kind of like for the English and German mentality again,
Yep.
inexpensive holidays in cheap
Yep.
places, and you brought your car, so you brought everything
Yep.
you needed, really. Yeah.
Yep. See, no, it's funny. Like the Agriturismo is definitely, it's evolved quite a bit from, kind of those early days. And this is, you're talking about like 30 years ago. And so she started the Agriturismo. And as you know, she does cooking classes. So she started doing cooking classes, probably, a few years after that. And then my husband started the winery in the late 90s, so 1998.
But were there vineyards there already, and they just were like for your family use, kind of?
Yeah, basically. So there were vines here, but the vineyard was, you've seen it in person, but it was a lot smaller, and it was actually more of like a terraced vineyard. When my husband's grandfather first bought Querceto. And then when my husband decided to start kind of the proper winemaking at Querceto, they had to restructure and pretty much replant everything.
Wow.
It was quite.
And how long does it take before you can actually like produce like a nice wine? I mean,
usually I would say like, it takes 3 years to be able to start producing wine. But it takes, probably 7 or 8 years before you can produce like really, honestly, really, kind of good, beautiful quality wines from new vines. My husband, what he did actually is he reconstructed or replanted the vineyard in stages, so he could leverage some of the older vines that were already there, at least for kind of like
perfect,
the first. Yeah. So his, he decided to start producing wine in 1998, and the first vintage was 1998.
Wow, amazing! That's great.
Yeah. And the first wine was dedicated to my mother-in-law. So
yeah. And how many wines do you make now?
Now, gosh, we make 6 wines in total. So we do a rosé with 100% Sangiovese, because we mainly, we're in the Chianti Classico, so we have mainly Sangiovese grapes growing. So we do 100% Sangiovese rosé, which is kind of a newer addition to the portfolio. I don't think people in Italy, like producers, were doing rosé like 10 years ago.
It's so funny too, because it's I always think of rosé in like Provence, right? So sitting outside the countryside and aperitivos, and that was just never thought of here. And it's really such a lovely wine. Yours is really beautiful too. It's delicious.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it took some convincing, honestly, to like kind of get my husband to produce a rosé, because he wasn't a rosé drinker before. But
it wasn't part of the culture at all.
To see. No, well, and I think people also, like Italians, they didn't see it as kind of like a quality wine necessarily. But I think it's changed so much, and now there's a huge range of styles for rosés, and I have to say, like, Italian rosés are some of my absolute favorites to drink. Ours obviously included, but
I think they have a lot of personality here. And you could tell they're different because of the Sangiovese.
Big time. I think so, for sure. I think the Sangiovese, it adds like really nice kind of complexity and acidity, like really good kind of like refreshing acidity. So it definitely, I find like Sangiovese based rosés, like kind of wake up your mouth and like your palate.
Yeah, it's not like drinking water. Some rosés are just like for somebody who doesn't like wine, you know?
Well, no, there's like some rosés that are called, they actually like, they're called summer water. Like I think there's a rosé I know called like summer water. Um, and so I mean that's kind of how they sell it. And I'll be on, that's not my style of rosé. I mean, it's obviously for some people, but
Do you remember too the Italian, to me, the Italian idea of summer, like red wines, was they'd put like, what was it called? Spuma, the Italian soft drink.
Oh,
Like
I don't,
Andrea at like lunchtime growing up in San Frediano, they would have wine on the table for everybody.
yeah.
And then the kids would put like half water.
Yep.
And when I go to a wine bar, they have you can also get it with like a spuma, so it makes like a wine cooler.
Oh, that's funny.
So like for guys that are out working and can't like knock back a couple of glasses,
Yep.
because even table wine here is so rich, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
to lighten it up, either bubbly water or or the spuma. Yeah.
Really funny. I've never heard of
Sangria.
that, but that's Susie. Oh, that's hilarious.
It's so fun.
But
So it's gosh, now you know, with COVID and everything, you guys were holding those fabulous dinners in the winery in the vineyards. They're so beautiful.
thank
I
you.
I personally don't see summer happening here, but would you think Europeans are going to be coming?
I do. I think, I mean, if once, I think once, they kind of open up the borders, and kind of we allow European travel, I think it's going to be a little similar to last year. Like I remember we opened up like June 5th, and I mean, our first visitors were German. I, I think Germans were ready to kind of, get out and come and
Yeah, and
travel.
that's just it. I say, like, you know, in 5 to 8 hours they're here.
Yep.
Yeah,
So,
and it's no big deal. They come down, they eat, they drink, they have fun, they shop, and they load up their car with goods and they take them all back home. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think also like last year, I mean, and I think it's going to be fairly similar this year. People, I think, are craving, kind of open spaces. I mean, like so many of us have all been kind of like cooped up in our apartments, or, like in our homes or things like that. So I think when people do, finally are able to travel, they're going to want to go to places where there's like lots of space, kind of lots of like,
Fresh air, countryside, hiking, yeah, and great food. I mean, I think mostly that's what I see is people is also missing. That was like their big treat to themselves, is coming here and eating and drinking in Italy because it's so much
Yep.
cheaper than having good Italian food or good Italian wine at home. You guys are shipping, right?
We are. I have to say, like, it's actually, it's kept us afloat, kind of over like the past year and a half, as like our online wine sales. We do have a wine club, and our wine club is actually, it's more similar in style to like a Napa wine club, where you sign up and you get, like 2 shipments per year. We give, a 15% discount on the wines. I think what else? You get discounts on stays if you come to the Agriturismo, and free wine tastings. And then we obviously, I mean, we
So
started.
it's like being a little member.
Yeah. I mean, and you get, definitely like perks. And we started doing this year with like every shipment, like once our wine club members got their wines, we did a private wine club Zoom.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah.
Which it was amazing, because like we have wine club members. I mean, I have to say they're predominantly from the US.
Uh-huh.
But they were, people signed in for the Zoom, and there were people from like all over the US, and it was actually nice for them to kind of connect and kind of talk. I mean, this was still when things were very locked down in the US in many cities as well. And it was an opportunity for them all to kind of like connect and chat and like see how life was. And it was really fun for us, and I think fun for our members. And it's something, we definitely plan to continue to do. Like we're not going to just stop once, things kind of open up. We definitely want to continue to host them.
Yeah, I think every once in a while we get these kind of massive changes in life anyway. I was mentioning earlier, I'm a firm believer in the renaissance of rebirth. And just looking like that earlier today, I was watching Lisa from Australia and how she was in the fashion industry and then everything stopped. And so she remembered, 20 years ago, she was like a street artist doing watercolors. She learned to do watercolors here, and her work is incredible. So here's like a whole new business. And then you start to think, okay, how many years have passed since I moved here? What have I done? Do I still need to do that? Or can I do something else, another part of me, So it's, I think, giving people a lot of chance to look inside and think, what's next. I mean, you
Yeah.
have a winery, so that's telling you what's next, but the different ways of dealing with promotion and
Yeah.
sales and being in contact with your clients, and they don't have to come here.
Yep. Say.
It's
No, I
magical.
mean, and I think, I mean, I don't know about you. I mean, I know you've been doing the, online like cooking classes, and things like, is that something you plan to kind of continue to do?
Yeah,
Probably
because,
less so, but still perhaps.
well, number one, the whole thing is, I was just telling you too, I've been here 37 years. So I started my cooking school in Florence in 1988, and I was like the first day cooking class in Florence.
Mhm.
And then I started market tour cooking classes, maybe in 97, like when internet started. So I was one of the first people to do like I do market tours and lunch or market tour in the cooking class.
Yeah.
And, now I've like been there, done that.
Mhm.
And so then we moved out to Certaldo in the countryside,
Yeah.
and I rented a space for 5 years in Colle Valdelsa. And then I started concentrating more on my week-long culinary programs. So I
Yeah.
closed the school because then there was no overhead.
Yeah.
And I organized culinary programs in Puglia and in Sicily and in Tuscany, and custom programs for groups of friends. So I had when COVID came in, I had a group that we were going to go actually up to like Verona, Soave, Venice, that whole region up there, and do like a week to 10-day program up there, which I've done before. Do you remember Joanne Weir?
Oh my God, I know Joanne Weir actually quite well. I've been to, I met her through my friend in Suave, because
Oh
Joanne,
yeah, okay, great. Well, I was the one who organized her first tours up in Suave.
sorry, no way. Sorry.
Yeah, and I'm actually going to interview Joanne next as my American kitchen sister, because I belong to the Culinary Association that Joanne does. So I met her years ago, and I had already opened my school and been doing that, but she traveled and taught a lot. And I said, I want to be you when I grow up. And that's our big joke together, is that, well, I am. And I don't have a TV show, and I don't have a restaurant, and I don't have my own tequila, whatever, but she's really a Renaissance woman too. But yeah, I did a lot of her programs here in Chianti, and we did the Suave. We went to like Pierre Pan is who we went to for.
I'm really curious if I'm surprised I didn't meet you, because my friend Chiara, her winery is called Coffilet.
Uh-huh.
And I was there when Joanne was there with a group. And that's actually
So I started like a bunch of programs with her, and then I
Okay.
turned her over to a girlfriend of mine.
Oh,
Maybe you met Carla.
it might have been perhaps.
Carla was her assistant then, would travel with her here. Carla was originally from France and also had a Spanish father. So she spoke English, Spanish, French.
Yeah.
And so Carla became her assistant and was the one who traveled and translated and confirmed everything. So yeah, but Joanne's a really good friend of mine. We were just messaging yesterday.
Yeah. I've been to her Mexican restaurant in Sausalito.
It's delicious, isn't it?
Oh, good Lord. They're like the best chips, guacamole. Like I could like sit there for hours.
And
just,
what
like,
I love too is that it's gluten-free because she uses all the corn masa.
Yeah.
And at the end, she did the little like kokoli, the little fried dough balls made of the corn masa. Did you have those?
I'm trying to remember
Dessert?
if I did. Ooh, I don't know if I made it to dessert.
No. But yeah, I went actually with, I think we were probably all at ISCP. I went with Steve from Rancho Gordo, the bean guy.
Okay,
from Napa. He's a really good friend of mine. And who else did we go with? Somebody else. So we went over there and had a really great lunch. Great location.
It is. I love it. God, that's that's something it's one of the things I miss probably about California is the Mexican food. So we try to recreate it every once in a while. Like there's the VV market in Florence. So every once in a while we'll try to cook up a kind of a Mexican dinner.
And it works. It's okay. I just planted my own cilantro.
Good.
Well, last year I planted cilantro and it's growing. I replanted this year. And I schlepped my tortilla press from America a million years ago.
Oh, really?
And you can get like the masa.
Yep.
And now I've been ordering it online from a shop in Torino. And I got it like the next day.
Oh, I'm going to have to, you're going to have to share that contact with me because I would.
Yeah, I think with expats too, like sharing this information. I got that Korean chili paste, which I'd never had before.
Oh, the
Guangchang or whatever.
Oh God, it's gochujang.
Oh my God, I made chicken wings the other day with that. We're delicious. And then because basically it's kind of like tomato paste with a kick, right?
Yep.
So I added it to our soup the other night because I love chili. And and it worked really well. Yeah, so this Asian marketplace, I'll send you their link.
Oh, please do, please do.
They were so good, and it wasn't just Asian, so they had Mexican things too. And being California, you can make a tomato onion salsa really quickly. And I took my leftover. What did I make? I think I made something with wild boar, or maybe I had piposo. So I had piposo left over, and I shredded it, and I made some tortillas and put it inside, made a little salsa on top of it.
Brilliant. That is such a brilliant. Yeah, I'm gonna have to, because I mean, Laura, we did in one of our live cooking classes, we did piposo.
How did you do that? You just pretended that? Did you have one that was already done to show people?
We had one that was already done.
Yeah. It's hard to do those longer dishes because you kind of need to hold people's hands a little bit.
Piposo it is a little less so, I guess, because you just you kind of put it on the heat for.
Yeah, but they don't know how long to leave it.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Well, it's really tough, and it's like even longer.
Now we've struggled with that with some of the slower cooking dishes for
because
sure.
So many things here just like put on the stove and go do something else. Yeah.
Yep. See, that
which is so great. And I think it's giving the people the freedom to not stand over things so much and worry and stress, but to free them in the cooking. So when
I'm careful though. I always want to keep stirring things. Like Laura, my mother-in-law, always scolds me because she's like, no, don't. Like I always want to keep touching and stirring.
Like yesterday, I did sugo finto, right? What? It's the carrot, onion, celery, the sofrito.
Excuse me.
Okay. My mother-in-law called it sugo finto. There's no meat in it.
Yeah.
So but what my mother-in-law, her signature was that she lived in an apartment that the kitchen window went onto the courtyard of the big building in San Ferdinando, so all the neighbors and kids were always in the backyard. So she'd be hanging out the window talking to her friends, and something would burn all the time. So if you wanted to taste like my mother-in-law made it, you kind of let it burn a little bit, And I think that's one of the secrets too of good cooking is maybe a higher heat.
Yeah.
And not stirring. And because when you go to write a recipe, can you really say, leave it on there for 10 minutes, but really it's 20 because how high is your heat?
Yeah.
And what pot are you using? And it's really so hard, I think, to write a recipe as opposed to teach someone to cook.
I completely agree. And actually, because for Laura, when she's doing the cooking classes, she obviously, she gives out the recipes and it's mainly in English. So I was doing the translations of the recipes or whatnot. And this is when she was doing like 100 cooking classes a year or something. So, like 2 years ago. But then we started doing the live videos, in the past year and a half, and we're doing these recipes where I was like, gosh, that wasn't in the recipe, or like, we didn't, that wasn't down or whatnot. And it's really helped me to kind of cook these dishes with her, and kind of go through all of these, because it's really tough, I think, just, kind of reading the recipe. And I also think sometimes if you're just writing the recipe from memory, a lot of the times, there's certain little nuances or things like that you perhaps you might not remember.
Yeah, well, I think also Italians don't think like that.
Yeah.
And plus they never give someone the real recipe. It's like, well, and they assume that people know how to cook.
Yeah.
And you don't think you have to tell someone what kind of pot or how high is the heat and what to look for. To really write a recipe takes pages, and no one wants a recipe that's long. So you shorten it, and then people are like, well, you didn't say that. It's like, that's why you're taking a class.
No, exactly. It makes a big difference.
You learn how I cook, and then you repeat it. And I always start with garlic, olive oil, and chili pepper, or carrot, onion, and celery. And it should be, I remember the first time I tried to make a Denver omelet. Okay. My mother was raised in China, and her parents were European. My grandmother was Ukrainian, and she met my grandfather in Shanghai, and he was born in France of a Turkish father and an English mother, and then was sent to China in the American Army. Long story. And so I don't really have American food as part of my ingrained knowledge.
Okay.
I grew up learning to eat with chopsticks. We had rice more than we had potatoes. My father was from San Francisco. He complained all the time. We would have curry, we would have stir fry. When I left America, I learned how to make sushi, Japanese dashi broth, how to
Okay.
roll my own, how to do Japanese rice. I learned how to do all my Mexican things I knew I would miss. But
Yeah.
at home, I'm trying to think, American food wasn't really my mother's forte. She would
Same.
like buy cookbooks and try to cook, a
Same.
beef stew or something. But I remember one of my girlfriends said, we're gonna make a Denver omelet. And she gave me, I think it was like bell peppers and onions to cut. Well, I
Yeah.
had been cooking more French style, 5-star hotel stuff. So I'm
Yeah.
like julienning these. And she goes,
Like,
what are you doing? You just ruined that. They're supposed to be chunky, but she didn't tell me. And I'd never eaten a Denver omelet.
yeah. See?
I don't know.
See?
So
Oh no, it's empowering. See.
So I have a cookbook from Giorgio Locatelli, who's
Okay.
Italian and has a Michelin star restaurant in London.
Hmm.
And I can read the recipes and
Yeah.
know what he means.
Okay.
But if you follow the recipes don't work.
Yep. This is the
Because
No.
they're following a chef around taking notes like you and Laura.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of unspoken things in
Same.
that, which are pretty funny, I think.
No, I've tried to, we did, it was, I think it was, it was when we were actually able to travel. We organized a wine dinner like in a private home with like some friends. And we had Laura's recipes. So we're like, well, just, we're going to just cook up Laura's recipes. And they did not like turn out anywhere like close to what like our dishes normally. We were,
Yeah.
we tried our best, but, and then when we actually like, when I did a live cooking class, doing one of the dishes, I was like, oh my
That
goodness.
makes sense. I had a friend, and what he was doing, he was learning to cook like with his grandma.
Mm.
And because she didn't have any written recipes, he just like set up a camera and just cooked with her and saw like how much she put in her hand.
Yeah.
And, didn't get too anal retentive while he was cooking with her,
Okay.
but got all the little details and the nuances. So I think sometimes these films, I think we'll look back on later and people will really enjoy them for their values of really cooking with somebody.
I think so. I think for sure.
So that's why I'm kind of thinking of when this ends, which, might be this fall, who knows that Americans would come back. I have bookings for November for Sicily that have been moved like 3 times. And
same.
I'm thinking maybe October Americans, but I just think Italy has to be under control.
Yeah. No,
For like the hotels to be open and the restaurants to be open and travel. And we're just kind of being kind of slow with the vaccines.
Vaccine rollout has been, kind of a bit of a.
And to me, why don't we vaccine all the people with the restaurants and waiters first and let them open?
I kind of agree. I feel like there's certain people who should be vaccinated first and are not.
With public service and all that kind of stuff, really. But so anyway, who knows what's going to happen? All for the best. We're still here.
Yeah, we're kind of, we're keeping our fingers crossed, obviously. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, like I think this summer, I think we will see, some Europeans once things kind of, one thing open up. And then Italians. I mean, like it's funny, like in a normal year, we actually wouldn't have like a lot of Italians coming to stay with us during the summer. And last year we had a lot more Italians.
The staycations for the Italians. And I think that's fabulous. So Italy, if Italy just opens among itself again, Italians will be traveling in Italy, man. I can't wait to go to like Viareggio and Lucca, just something close by and have some fried fish and go visit these places that I've been to and driving back through Chianti. I actually I think I made a mistake. I had an operation on my leg, and as soon as I could walk again, I was just like so relieved. And I said, the first thing I think we're just about to go into red again. And we were orange. And I said, oh my God, yeah, before we go to red, let's go to Dario's and have a panino, because I knew the restaurant was closed. So we went, we ate, and it was so much fun. It was really fabulous. And as soon as I got home, it's like, people were harassing me. What were you doing driving over to Dario's? And I'm like,
really?
And I totally, you get this like COVID brain fog. And I was like, because the rules aren't the same for the colors each time.
Yeah, no, they change. They seem to kind of change like all the time.
I knew I couldn't go eat in a restaurant.
Yeah, so sweet.
And I knew you could get food to go, and he has the food truck.
No.
but I didn't realize I couldn't leave my village.
Ah, okay. So it was during that. Yeah. See. No, and they've definitely, no, they've changed things. So it's like the colors used to mean, one thing, and then it's changed, kind of recently. And I think it's almost like they've gone from like, you have orange, light orange, and like, deep orange.
Yeah, it's been funny. Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about you have your wine club so people could order your wines, and it
Yeah.
comes twice a year, right?
Yep, it comes twice a year, and we do it a little bit differently. Like, so there's a lot of wine clubs where you have like your set selection of wines, or they'll like send you like a mixed case or whatnot. You can do that. Like you can choose like our Chianti Classico selection, where you get us, our Laura Chianti Classico, and then you get our Say Chianti Classico Gran Selezione, which is our top Chianti Classico.
I was gonna say you have different vintages, right, for the members? You get
Then
different vintages?
they get priority access to
Okay.
wine. So like, let's say like let's say if we're sold out, like as an example, like our Levia white wine, which is what I am sipping at the moment. It's
Show the label, because your labels are pretty too.
Oh, thank you. This is Olivia, and this is the footprint of my husband's niece, Olivia. So this is
Very sweet.
too. But this is a really small production wine, so we only do like 2,000 bottles a year. So our wine club members they have guaranteed allocation of the Olivia, like if that's a wine that they sign up to receive. So we do that. We do our Taste of Querceto Club, which is a selection of all of our wines. But then a lot of people, we give the opportunity to do a custom club. So like, let's say you love the white wine, you love our rosé, you love the Laura Chianti Classico, and you want to do a mix of those. We give the flexibility to select that.
But if somebody wanted to do, because this is be like crazy me, I would like to do like either, verticals or horizontals.
Yeah.
Of, that kind of thing. Because I think that's fun for a party sometimes. Is the same wine in different years, and if they could, like you said, when you do your guided tastings too, that's kind of fun.
Yeah, no, vertical tastings are really great, and we do vertical tastings with our Merlot, which that wine is called Podalidio, and we've been producing that since 1999. So we can actually do verticals, kind of starting with like the 1999 vintage. Maybe we'll go to like 2001, 2002, 2004. And it's really interesting to see how the wine is kind of, how it ages, and then also how it's kind of evolved, perhaps the style a little bit, over the years. So we do verticals with the Merlot, the Laura, which is, it's funny, it's considered more of an everyday drinking Chianti Classico, but it's a wine that actually has a little bit of aging potential. Like we've tasted.
What's the alcohol on that one?
That's 13, I think, or 13.5.
Yeah, so I would think, and I think that's another thing people don't really realize is, buying wine to me as an investment to age.
Yeah.
So I don't know how many people actually have cantinas, but I do have some friends that come and they travel with their wine suitcases. So
yeah.
They'll ship wine home of the more normal bottles, but of their collector bottles of the wines they're going to age. Because she told me, and I don't know if this is true, that when you ship wine home, they open the boxes and they put a tax sticker or something on it, the bottles. And she didn't want those stickers on her bottles. And so the wine bottles she takes home don't get that put on it. So I don't know anything about that, but
I don't really know. I'm trying to think of, I don't think that they have a little sticker on them.
I don't know, but that's what her theory in life was. So she brings a wine suitcase with her, which are on wheels.
Yeah.
And they have the styrofoam holders that I think maybe it's 12 bottles on wheels.
Seriously.
Yeah. And
that's funny. Yeah, no, we end up, most of the people who come and visit us ship wines home.
So much easier.
Something we do, like a lot. And it's changed a lot. It still, it takes, to ship to the US, usually about, 20 business days or so. But the shipping costs are, are less expensive than they used to be, let's say, like 10 or 15 years ago.
Exactly.
And the way we do it is like, if you actually if you consider the shipping costs and you divide it per bottle, you actually, the cost per bottle ends up being almost what you would pay at retail for the wine anyway. And you're so, but that's something that we do quite often.
Yeah, because somebody else also asked me, and the only thing I could think of was they said, is it that somebody had been taking wine in his carry-on and had been stopped.
Yeah.
not carry-on, in his luggage, shipped in his luggage,
Yeah.
and had been stopped, and I don't know if they wanted taxes or something. And the only time that ever happened to me was I went from here to Germany, and then Germany or Holland or somewhere to America.
Okay.
I had to go through customs another time, and I had in a duty free bought something.
Yeah.
And when I went into Germany or wherever I was, they wanted me to pay tax on it
Huh. That's
because I was bringing in something taxable into their country, even though I wasn't leaving the airport,
see. That's
which
a little
seems totally wrong to me. So,
yeah, I assume that like, yeah, kind of like once well, you bought it at duty free.
but I think it's you're supposed to go on the plane and then take it home. So
Yeah.
these rules too, you're in a foreign country, somebody says something to you. To me, it's just not worth taking the risk.
Yeah, no. I agree. Like, and also like for me, it's, I mean, every once in a while, like Jacopo and I maybe will like sneak in, like, or we'll put a bottle or two in our luggage. But usually like if we're traveling, like if we go to Napa or something like that, we'll kind of ship everything.
No, but it's not against the law. I have a girlfriend who comes, and she comes to Canty, and I remember she drinks, but her husband doesn't. And she especially liked, oh God, what was it? Vinha Maggio has a wine that they produce, has a beautiful label, but it's not sold in America.
Okay.
She would buy 36 bottles and hide them, wrap them in their luggage. You can bring as much wine as you want in, you just have to declare it. It's not 2 bottles per person.
Really? I always assumed, I was
2 bottles tax-free.
Oh, okay. All right.
And the tax is very low on wine, actually, when you go in. So she would bring in 36 bottles of wine. She would declare it. You have 2 bottles, each adult tax-free.
Yeah.
And no problem.
Oh, that's
and
funny.
now, of course, there's better things than wrapping your pants around them or something.
But yeah, but so I mean, I'm trying to think, like our wine club. It's nice. I mean, it's one of my favorite, kind of projects that we have here.
And I think, to me, also the best way to tour any country or visit something is to visit friends. And by joining like a wine club, you get contact with the owners. And then like if you guys are offering a discount and to use that as your home base, it's like you're going to visit family.
Yeah, no, that's true. And I have to say that's a really great point, because we, I remember on one of our Zooms with our wine club members, one of our clients who's become a really good friend of ours, actually, he was like, he's like, there are amazing producers everywhere. He's like, you can find, great wines. He's like, you guys produce great wines, but we love you as people. Like, you make us feel like family.
Yeah.
And whenever we come back to see you guys, that's kind of what it feels like. And he's like, and that's why we love going to you and why we love recommending people, go and visit you. And I think that personal connection and the kind of personal relationship, I mean, I think it makes for us, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah. And I think it's kind of funny too, because there's so many people that once they've made contact and made friends, they don't care about going anywhere else.
Yeah.
They'll like use that as the base. And if you think about it too, well, I think about it a lot. Every time you go somewhere new, you're starting over again.
Yeah.
You're finding a new hotel, you're finding a new restaurant, you're finding new this, you have to drive. There's can be so much stress being in a foreign country on vacation.
Yeah.
That there is nice to have something where I remember people would come even in rent apartments, right? Yeah. And leave all their luggage there and tell the owners, we're going away for a week, we'll be back. Mm-hmm. And usually if you book like for a month or 3 months somewhere, it's cheaper than if you just book by the week.
Yeah.
So then they could just take an overnight bag or a small luggage and go travel and say, well, let's go to Umbria for overnight for the weekend or something. When you actually have a home base and you can trust where you're staying and you have people, or they're going to ask you, where should we go, like to another winery? Who would you recommend? And you know how to pick a different style winery, and it could be for like the architecture or like I like combining, because to me it's an event. Like you guys have the apartments and a beautiful area, and you do the dinners in the winery, in the vineyards. Yeah. And your perfect location is that you're up on a hill, off the beaten track, but you're between Castellina and Panzano. I mean, that's perfect, you know?
No, no. I mean, our location is awesome. Like I had a friend who I was chatting with earlier today who came and visited the winery a few years ago. And he's like, it was great. He's like, we could relax and, and stay at the estate and drink wine. But then they did like a few day trips into Florence.
Exactly, yeah.
Which was really great. They went to Vienna, see, but it was always nice for them to kind of like, come back here because, our vacation apartments also have kitchens. We have barbecues around, we have a pizza oven. So you can, like do your things during the day, come back here, open up a bottle of wine, relax on like
That's what I always suggest to people. Like someone's like, well, we want to go out to dinner. And I'm like, you want to drink and drive? They don't imagine that there's like no lights on the roads. There's deer, there's wild boar.
Yeah.
It's so much better to just like relax at home, have a big meal at lunch, go for a walk, go exploring, and then come home.
No, and also because you probably run into this. I mean, a lot of people are like, well, we can just get taxis, and I'm like, no. Okay, you could, but you're going to spend like a ton of money.
But it is something that they could do, and that people have done is that that they want to travel and they want to drink, and they may do a whole like day tour and take a car and drive where it's like 250, 350 for a day, but they put all your luggage and shopping things in the back of the car. They take on a designated day. I think that's worth it. And if you do want to go for dinner, maybe like leave late in the day, visit a winery, visit a city, go somewhere else, and then have a lovely dinner and then come back home. But also, I think the drivers are limited to how long they can be out in a day.
Yeah, I think so. They also changed the rules.
Yeah, so it's like it's not a 12-hour day that you're gone from 10 in the morning until 10 at night. So when you think about staying out for dinner too, you have to realize you're probably gonna be out till 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
If you eat in an Italian style restaurant, you can go at 7, but that's like, why bother?
But something like that. I mean, anybody that I've ever recommended it to, like anybody who's done like a wine tour or like, or kind of hired a driver to take them around, like they've always loved it and had a great experience. And they were always so thankful for, for kind of the recommendation.
It's expensive, but it's so relaxing for both couples because whoever has to drive, navigating, trying to get to these places, the GPS isn't always perfect. It's like that little dot you put on the GPS when you put where you are, sometimes on the other side of the mountain. I've been with professional drivers too that have ended up to driving up a one-way road in the mountains, and like I go everywhere where I want to take people first.
Yeah.
I have a car and driver, we meet our guides and all that kind of stuff. So I've been there, right? And I'm like, this isn't the wrong road. He goes, no, it's on the GPS, it's fine. I'm like, I printed out a map for you. This is how we're supposed to go. And then he had to like back down a mountain. Oh my God.
But I still get really, well, and also whatever, I don't have my Italian driving license yet, but so I actually really don't drive like at all. My husband drives mainly. But the few times I did drive when I first moved here, like I actually was really nervous because there's definitely a different kind of style of driving.
God, when they come up right behind you, when they want you to move over so they can pass.
Driving on I couldn't handle driving on the autostrada, like on the highways here. Like I would have panic attacks. And my husband's one of those guys who would like drive up your butt. So
yeah.
It's and I get nervous when he does it. So
yeah, it's funny. My husband was a cab driver and he drives so safely. It's really great. Yeah. It's really fun. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this and put it on YouTube.
Excellent.
And I'm going to put the link to your website.
Thank you.
So people could find you. And then, so this is also going to be staying on, is on Facebook, but then I'll replace it with the one with the information and everything from YouTube. Fantastic. Okay. So we'll see later. We'll go and see if questions that were on Facebook, because I don't look at Facebook while we're doing this. It's a couple of seconds behind us. Okay.
Yes.
So thanks so much for being my guest. And can't wait till we're back whining again, right?
I know. I will look forward to, maybe meeting you at Dario's again. So
yeah, I was hoping I can get there for my birthday, but then I'm thinking, well, even if we can, I mean, I was there like in the last summer, I think I went with a girlfriend and she came from Florence by train and we were in the car together. She wore the mask. And then when we were at Dario's, we were at a table spread out. So he makes it work.
Yeah, no, but well, I will look forward to whenever that can actually happen. So
Okay. Ciao, Bella. Thank you.
weekend.